For the first time in his career, Daniel Ricciardo is not in Formula 1. The 9-time race winner has been a familiar face on the grid since 2011, but come 2023, he is sitting on the sideline as Red Bull reserve driver. However, out of nowhere, a slim chance has appeared for him to replace a certain Dutch driver mid-season. And no, I'm not talking about Max Verstappen. So, could we be seeing Ricciardo rejoin the F1 grid as soon as the summer break? Daniel Ricciardo's Formula 1 career has been an eventful one. He burst onto the scene in 2011 joining HRT before moving to Toro Rosso mid-season. And within 3 years of joining the sport, Ricciardo was already driving for the reigning world champions Red Bull. And in his first season with the team, he outshone his more experienced teammate, 4-time reigning champ Sebastian Vettel. And then Ricciardo remained at Red Bull until 2018, achieving 8 victories, including his famous win at Monaco in 2018. But despite this, he decided to leave the team and join Renault as he felt he wasn't being treated equally compared to his teammate, Max Verstappen. At Renault, Ricciardo continued to demonstrate his abilities, beating both his teammates easily. However, he then moved to McLaren, hoping for better results. But unfortunately, his stint at McLaren was less than ideal, with the Australian getting outperformed by his young teammate Lando Norris. Despite winning McLaren's first race in a decade, Ricciardo was beaten by Norris by 45 points in 2021 and 85 points in 2022, and soon he was sacked and out of Formula 1. However, his career took an unexpected turn as he has now joined Red Bull as a third driver, primarily involved in promotional and simulator work. Now, while Ricciardo's recent performances have not been as impressive as his early career, he remains a talented and respected driver in the sport, and fans hope that he will have another opportunity to showcase his skills on the track in the future. On the other side of things is Nick de Vries. This young Dutch driver has made a name for himself with his recent performances, but for all the wrong reasons. After winning the Formula 2 Championship in 2019, de Vries was passed over for a Formula 1 drive and instead moved to Formula E, where he won the championship in just his second year. Then in 2022, de Vries was called up by Williams to replace Alex Albon at the Italian Grand Prix, and despite having minimal practice time, he outqualified his teammate and drove exceptionally well in the race, finishing in P9 and scoring 2 out of the 8 points that Williams scored all season. De Vries' impressive performance at the Italian Grand Prix garnered attention from several teams, and he was eventually signed by Alpha Tauri to race alongside Yuki Tsunoda for the 2023 season. Now, the reason both Nick and Daniel have hit the headlines is because of Daniel Ricciardo's recent seat fitting for Alpha Tauri, which has led to speculation that Danny Ric could be making a return to Formula 1. Ricciardo is currently working as Red Bull's reserve driver, but his strong track record has fueled rumours that he could soon find himself back on the grid. Now, there are a few potential reasons for Ricciardo's seat fitting with Alpha Tauri. One possibility is that he is simply covering for the team's regular drivers in the event of an emergency. This would be consistent with Ricciardo's current role as Red Bull's reserve driver. Alternatively, this seat fitting could be an indication that Ricciardo is being considered for a full-time drive with Alpha Tauri. Of course, there are a number of factors that would need to fall into place for Ricciardo to make his return to Formula 1. Not only that, but in addition to securing a drive with Alpha Tauri, Ricciardo would need to prove that he is still a competitive driver, something he struggled with in an underperforming McLaren. Now, this growing speculation that Nick de Vries may be replaced at Alpha Tauri is because he is currently struggling to match his teammate Yuki Tsunoda. De Vries has been beaten convincingly by Tsunoda at every race so far in 2023, and is currently last in the standings with 0 points to his name. While the 2023 Alpha Tauri car is known to be difficult to control, de Vries' performance deficit to Tsunoda, averaging at just over 3/10, is not a good sign for his future at the team. In fact, reports suggest that team advisor Helmut Marko has given de Vries an ultimatum, saying that he must improve by the Spanish Grand Prix or prepare to be replaced. Now, although these reports are not confirmed, it's worth noting that Red Bull has a history of replacing drivers mid-season. In 2016, Daniel Kvyat was replaced by Max Verstappen, and in 2019, Pierre Gasly was replaced by Alex Albon. Given this precedent, it's possible that Red Bull could look to replace de Vries with a more experienced driver such as Daniel Ricciardo. However, it's important to note that Ricciardo's seat fit for AlphaTauri could simply be a part of his role as Red Bull's reserve driver. But it appears that the fate of Nick de Vries at Alpha Tauri is in his own hands. But the question remains whether Daniel Ricciardo is the right driver for the job. Ricciardo has expressed his desire to return to the grid as soon as possible, and going back to Red Bull, while perhaps may have been a bit humiliating, could be very beneficial for him. With Ricciardo back at Red Bull, there's a chance he could rediscover the form that saw him winning races for the team in the past, making him a strong contender if he were to come back. However, the reality is that Alpha Tauri currently offers a car that will not allow Ricciardo to prove himself. The team's car is difficult to control and is unpredictable in the braking zone, and Ricciardo will likely struggle to challenge for points. In many ways, his experience at Alpha Tauri would be a replay of his stint at McLaren, where he was beaten by Lando Norris by a significant margin. Now, that's not to say Yuki would do the same thing, but with the Japanese driver having a great start to the season, he's certainly got a head start. Nevertheless, Ricciardo's seat fit at Alpha Tauri could serve as an option for him to get back into the action. In Formula 1, it is easy for drivers to be forgotten, so even a limited return could help him attract attention from other teams. Ultimately, it remains to be seen whether Ricciardo will return to the grid, and most importantly, if Nick de Vries can turn his season around. So this marks the first real silly season news of the year so far. Of course, it's by no means confirmed, but definitely food for thought. And so I guess it's up to Nick to get to grips with that car, or we may just be seeing the Honey Badger making a shock return to Formula 1.